Hi, I'm Starlet Hill. I am a screenwriter, director, producer, and actress.
My name is Michael Finn. I am a director, actor, filmmaker, and co-founder of Nova House.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey Creighton. I am an actor and also a part-time filmmaker.
Troy Rowland. I am a director and a producer. Projects that I've worked on recently, I have directed 15 episodes of Disney Channel shows. I worked for Hulu, did one episode of The Runaways, and now I'm doing some Netflix stuff, and I just did a pilot spec for Showtime.
Um, I try to. Um, Maybe not physical art. Well, actually, let me take it back. I actually did recently use physical art, but I do try to incorporate that at least to give it some visual appeal to people. I think the mind has to be stimulated by a lot of what you see. Um, and then one thing I did learn from reading a book, it was that film is um, a story told in pictures and then dialogue. So you want to be as visual as possible. So that definitely, yes.
Absolutely, 100%. Like I write, which is not my forte, but I write as art. I just took up painting. It's a new thing for me, but it just helps me understand how things work together. It's the same reason why I started shooting film and editing film, is so as a director I can understand and communicate and just be able to jump in if needed. But it allows me a bigger knowledge to say, okay, I know if I'm going for this kind of thing that we're going to have this color palette, we're going to need these things. So if I know from my painting experience that yellow and blue are going to do this, and red and green are going to do this, it's just another piece of knowledge to make cleaner, more efficient, more impactful film.
For me, it's initially more important when I find my inspiration. So I look at a lot of art pieces, I look at a lot of photography, just to kind of clear my mind and find inspiration for the stories I want to tell, especially when it comes to my screenwriting. I'm a big Pinterest person, so I tend to formulate a Pinterest board, kind of like a storyboard for every film idea I have. I start immediately pinning like what the characters are going to be wearing, different art pieces, what they might look like, different photography or angles that I might want. So for me, it's very important because it's like the initial step to being inspired.
I utilize art old school. When I direct, I have a person who does what is called storyboards. They read the script, and then we meet, and I get my illustrator to draw out each scene as written so that I can keep the integrity of the writer and the person who created it. And then I put it up on a big board as I'm directing. And as we do each scene, I cross it off. The man sits at the bench thinking, so he'll draw a picture like this, or he'll do one like this. He'll give me two choices, which opens up more ideas for me because I only thought it like this. But now if I imagine the park bench and what he drew, it just opens it up that much the more. And I find out I'm more proficient, more efficient. I found out that I'm more efficient when I have a storyboard than when I just make a shot list. Because it's a visual that you can see it, then write it down, and then do it.
Art and graphic design plays a huge part in filmmaking, especially because without storyboards and without the understanding of pre-production and all that, you have a much more difficult time actually shooting and telling your story. That graphic design world with storyboards is so essential of telling your story and knowing when you get to set, what you're looking for, how you want things to play out. You're basically creating the film before shooting it, so that you know, okay, this is what we need to pick up, these are the essentials, this is what we can get on B-roll, this is what we can do. But it just gives you that mindset, and it's a great, easy way to communicate, saying, this is what I'm looking for, having the visual of it, and just going from there so that everyone's on the same page and they're all looking at the same thing. So I think it's huge.
Art and graphic design are of paramount importance, especially with a lot of stuff that Disney, now that they've acquired Marvel, and they're going to be doing many, many more movies that require graphics, which illustrates a big part of the story. That's why, as you can tell, you see the graphics in front of Marvel movies and at the end sometimes, so they can see its inception and where it came from and how it originally started. When I was younger, we didn't have all of this new technology. We had to see someone's graphics in a book or a comic book or a cartoon book and read it and imagine it. And just by that being the basis of it and imagining, look at how far we've come. And can you imagine in 20 years? Graphics are coming from the iPhone. When the new iPhone, 12 comes out, it's going to be like a hologram that had to come from someone's idea of putting it there and believing that it could be done.
I feel it's extremely important. If you think about it, there's art all around us. Whether it's you may see a tree that's beautiful, you may see not just paintings and even your furniture. I believe everything has an artisticness to it. The clothes you wear represents art. It represents who you are. You can judge a person on what they wear sometimes. And I think also with film, you have to incorporate that. What are you visually trying to say? What kind of mood are you trying to set? I think all of those things really, really matter. It's really, really important. Color tells a lot of things too. So it's very important. Without that, you just might as well put two people in an empty room. So it's very, very important.
So artistic practices they're super important. It's like a discipline. It's like anything else, like sports. Like if you're not training your muscles and you're not training your body, you're not going to perform at your highest. It's the same thing. If you're not creating your storyboards to their best, even if they're stick figures, as long as we have the sense of what's going on. If you're not doing that and taking your artistic abilities and creating everything step by step on the regular, you're not going to do the best work that you can. So it's really just training those muscles. It's everything. We are, as actors and as filmmakers, we're emotional athletes, which I'm sure you've heard before. But we're also mental athletes. We have to be able to fire on all cylinders. And if you're not working those muscles, using your artistic abilities to keep creating, it just gets dormant. And then it's like, when you get back on a bike after a while, it takes a minute to find your bearings again. And eventually you get back to where you were, but when you take that break, when you're not working them consistently, you kind of have to start from a few steps back every time. And that's never a good thing in this industry. It's so fast, so you gotta keep working.
For me, initially I will say that I was very green as an indie filmmaker, so I wasn't really. I would have the shots in my head and I would know what I'd want, and I would try to kind of fill in the script as much as possible to get the cinematographer to understand that. A lot of times, they missed the mark, and I found myself wearing too many hats. So what I started to do, because I'm not very creative when it comes to drawing or artistically creative, was do the storyboarding on Pinterest, finding the different angles, and then being sitting down with the cinematographer, step by step, shot by shot, and being and this is the angle I want for this, and this is the angle I want for that. And it allowed me to grow and just them tell me what those angles were called, or a close up, this is a wide shot and everything like that. So I learned, and then they saw exactly what I wanted. So the projects that I did that for turned out much better and much more like my initial vision.
I use it, well, other than storyboards, I actually get inspired by art, and a lot of it's not in the traditional sense of I want to recreate this picture, or, I really like this guy's painting style, I'm going to do something that looks like that. For me, it's a feeling. When I go to a museum or something, I'm looking at a piece of art, I get inspired, and I feel a certain way, and my thought is, how can I then take that feeling and give it to someone else through film?
Right.
So art inspires me in a non-traditional sense, as well as the traditional color palettes and everything. I'll look at some art and say, how do I get that tone? I love the way this is framed, or the style of this. How do I get that feeling in an image? But more importantly to me is the emotion of it.
It really depends on the story. It really depends also on the skin tone that is whoever the actors are. Their skin tone matters. A lot of things play a critical role. If we're shooting a night scene, you may want to use hot and warm colors. Hot and cool colors. I love blue. Blue is something that really adds this dynamic to it. I love bringing out this gold sunrise color. Reflectors do that very well. So colors are big for me. A lot of my films have color in it, and not just added color, but we sit and we are moving lights around to create that dynamic. I also like doing Rembrandt lighting and backlighting subjects to create that halo effect. So yeah, lighting is a huge thing for me, and I enjoy it the most actually. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
Absolutely. I just did this spec show and it didn't have a big budget that I was used to. So I just wrote out the shot list. And once I was in post-production, I just realized that I didn't have time to do the storyboards or the budget or anything. And I just didn't get all the shots that I wanted. And it really affected the vision that I wanted to have. And I didn't have the money to really go back into it to fix it. So I had to just deal with what I had because the key components of art and illustration, they just weren't there, part of the process.
that was actually a short film I did called Strangers with Memories. I trusted a friend who was a director and a friend that was a cinematographer to shoot the project. They were like, every time I would try to talk to them about the shots, they're like, we got it. And I'd worked with them a lot on their own projects. So at that point I was like, well, I trust them. They know me. They're in my head. They're gonna know what I want. No. They barely even, I don't even know if they really ever read the script fully through before we started shooting. And they were so off the mark on so many things as far as like cinematically, how it's supposed to feel, the shots they got. I can't use it. Like, I had it up for a minimal time on Vimeo, but then I was like, I don't want to be remembered for this. Like, I can't. And it's so unfortunate because it was such a great cast and it was such a great script, but it was just off. And that one was a really big regret because it's something that I know in the future I'm going to want to reshoot and do it the right way, but take more time in the pre-production and the storyboarding and making sure I'm really communicating my vision to see it come to reality.
One of the first shorts I ever shot was, we thought it was going to be this simple little thing. It was one location, just the bedroom, 2 people. I was like, we're going to knock this thing out. No worries. We'll do a quick sketch and we'll just move right on. And then when we got there, I was like, God, I wish I had the storyboards because I don't know how to explain the look of what I need well enough without the visual. So I had to start searching on my phone for like, this is kind of what I'm looking for. This is the angle I need. This is what and I was like, if I had just done the storyboards, if I just even like, and I did a couple, but like, I'm not real artistic as far as drawing is concerned. So it was like the first 2 took me a while. And then I was like, oh, forget it, stick figures. Let's just rush through a couple of these. It's going to be easy. And then I looked back and I was like, I really wish I'd laid these out right so that I could literally go to my DP and say, here, this is what I need. Set up that shot because I've got to take care of this with the actor or that with lighting or this with sound. And I can just pass things out so much easier and say, this is the flow. And it would have saved me a lot of time.
That happened with something that I shot not too long before I left Miami and moved up here. It was a project called Internal Revenue, and we actually reshot it because there was a lot of things that weren't there, a lot of important things that would have made it that much better. You were just looking at actors perform. We weren't necessarily telling the story with pictures at first. So that was one project that I first didn't have the energy to redo over until a friend of mine who actually moved up here convinced me to really like go back at it because she felt it had something there. And the second go around, I was really happy with what we did and how we made those adjustments. Even with something as simple as a picture in the background that was a dark overlooking of the city of Miami. That wasn't there the first time around. We chose a better location. That was important. It didn't fit the story. Yes, that was one instance where everything wasn't what it was the first time, and fortunately I got to correct it the second time.
Well, it's a multiplicity of ways. Having art on the walls, having art around you makes it just better. makes it real, makes it authentic, and really adds on color to life. Can you imagine an artless room? A room with walls that are just white or tan and no art?
Yeah.
Even pictures that have been drawn, even murals. When I was growing up, my Uncle Bob was an artist, and he would often paint murals, and I would watch him look at something and paint. And I always wished I would have some of that talent, but it jumped from me. But my art is in a different way. But art is very of paramount importance to sets, set design. Every set starts out with the design, and then they take it from there and go find the things that were drawn.
I feel like, for me, writing a story is almost like when you have a blank canvas. Like, you are looking at this blank page and you are creating this world that doesn't exist, this reality. So you're taking your time, you're using the strokes, you want to fine tune everything. And I feel like there's a fine artistry and fine art in every form of the industry that we're in, but especially like when you're initially starting a script, it's almost like a painting in itself. And I find that I get really inspired by art and different pieces that I see, and it makes me want to take my time and make sure that I'm really producing the best product and it's going to have the best outcome.
Oh man, art and design is super important in every phase. Pre-production, again, storyboards, huge. Communication, talking to your costume designer, your set deck, all of that. Like, you have to be on the same page. So for me, it's referencing. I'm gonna try that again.
Okay.
For me, it's referencing material. It's, showing a picture from a magazine or a piece of art, say, I want to feel like this, I want to get this tone in pre-production, so the wardrobe knows, okay, this is the color palette we're working with, this is the idea that we're going for. Once you're in the filmmaking, when you're on set, everything from the second set decoration, making sure all of that looks right, to the camera, to the ISO, to the, everything, which all so well. It's super important to be on that same visual page, and having those references that you have made in pre-production, using them throughout filming as a means of communication, super important. And then once you get to post, you're getting into your color correction, all the stuff that you do in the editing process, and that in itself is a whole nother form of art, right? So you're looking at literally picture by picture of moving images, and those are, if you stop, like, each frame is important, and each one tells a story. So depending on where you make that cut, if you cut it, let's say you cut a frame and you have a particular look on someone's face, and if you freeze frame it, now you have an extra image. Or if you let it go an extra 3 seconds, you might tell a different story with emotion. That's all based on that same form of art and artistic ideals that painters use, sculptors, everything. We just do it with motion.
That's a good question. The first phase in pre-production, you really have read everything, and you may have challenges seeing certain things, but once you sit with your set designer and even your wardrobe, which is fabulous, and they draw these gowns out, they draw the room, and once you see that, it makes you have a clearer vision of what it is that you want to do and what it is that's required of you. So the visual is very important. I can't stress that enough, to give you gems in your mind of how you can embellish and make things better, but it starts from that. So it's very important, not only seeing art, but manifesting it and making it tangible and real. And I've seen people draw things, and then phase 2, you get the tailors to do the measurements, and then phase 3, it's a real living thing. And it just, especially in a period piece, it makes everything just come together.
Take your time seeing your vision, and to make sure your vision's properly shown, using fine art and design and storyboarding and really getting the picture across, it saves you so much time, it saves you so much money on the back end, because you're not having to reshoot things. You're not in post-production going, man, I didn't get that shot, I knew I wanted it because I didn't see it at the moment. It really allows you to get the most bang for your buck, working on the pre-production, making sure you see the board, see the vision, see the art during production, and then cross-checking it in post-production. So it goes all throughout every stage of production, and it really helps give you the best outcome and best project. So please don't skip this step just because you want to get it done, because you will regret it in the long run.
What I will say first and foremost, with film in general, do not be afraid of failing the first go around. I think if you look at it as failure, then you are not setting yourself up for success. Look at it as a learning experience. Look at it as a way to grow, an area to improve in. And if you incorporate art, make sure you're telling a visual story with it. A painting shouldn't just be a painting on a wall. And sometimes things need to be acknowledged in scenes that you're using art in, whether it's a statue, anything. There should be some acknowledgement to it. And it's great for cutting away in scenes, and also it may help enhance your story, whether it may be something as simple as a chandelier, or chimers, I believe that's what they call them, wind chimes, I'm sorry. Those are very important as well. They tell a story as well. So I think that would be my biggest advice. The most is make sure that the art sometimes is acknowledged in your films.
Yeah, man, so many. All right, filmmakers, if you're listening, go to museums, go watch movies, read any type of art that's out there. Read comic books. I mean, it's huge in the industry right now, right? Everything that is a visual medium will help you paint pictures in a certain way, and you'll see it in film. You'll see how things work out with the blocking, with the staging. You can get those from picture images and say, there's a dynamic here. Why? Start to deconstruct how the blocking is in a frame and realize how that translates to film. Because we all do it in life. We move, we hang out together, we move a certain way. If we feel more powerful, we're going to sit up straighter or taller or stand up. There's a dynamic in all of that that is so prevalent, especially in painting, that's going to help you tell a better story as a filmmaker.
Filmmakers, don't be one-dimensional and just about the lens or just about the performance. Art is life and life is art. Make sure you have all components, from storyboards to set design to wardrobe. It all starts with a thought, then writing it on the page, and then designing it and drawing it out so you can see it clearly and have a vivid imagination, and then you can compound upon what you have seen and make it turn into life. Art is life and life is art.